Chapter 1. The Unexpected Encounter. In the boundless expanse of the cosmos, amidst countless stars and swirling nebulae, the planet Zyphora spun silently on the edge of the Andromeda sector. A world untouched by war, unscarred by the greed of empires, Zyphora was a sanctuary for peaceful life, dominated by vast emerald forests, sprawling meadows, and tranquil crystalline lakes. Here, the herbivore alien race known as the Sylvari had thrived for millennia, their existence woven intimately with the delicate balance of nature. The Sylvari were an ethereal sight, tall and slender beings with smooth, pale green skin textured with intricate patterns resembling vines and blossoms, their eyes large and reflective, glowing faintly in hues of amber and jade. They moved with quiet grace, their long limbs seemingly designed for weaving through dense thickets and reaching the tender leaves of the towering zephyrin trees. For generations, they lived in harmony with their world, subsisting on the planet's rich flora and never once challenged by threats beyond their gentle realm. To them, the universe was a vast, beautiful tapestry of life, where predators were myths spoken only in the warnings of elders, cautionary tales of the distant dark voids beyond Zyphora's atmosphere. Among the Sylvari was Lyra, a young girl on the cusp of adulthood. She was especially attuned to the subtleties of the forest, its whispers, scents, and rhythms. From dawn until dusk, Lyra wandered the ancient groves, her senses keenly aware of every flutter of leaves and rustle of creatures beneath the undergrowth. Unlike many of her kind who preferred the safety of communal glades, Lyra was drawn to the unexplored, the forgotten places where light filtered through emerald canopies and pools of clear water shimmered like liquid glass. Yet beneath her quiet curiosity lay a fragile heart, tender and vulnerable, often haunted by tales told by the elders, stories of creatures that lurked beyond the known, beings that devoured rather than lived in peaceful coexistence. These warnings were distant echoes in her mind, but on this day, they would become all too real. The tranquility shattered abruptly when an enormous roaring sound tore through the forest, sending birds scattering in frantic flocks and animals fleeing in all directions. A great metallic beast had fallen from the sky, smashing through treetops and crashing onto the mossy earth with a violent thud that shook the ground beneath Lyra's feet. From a safe distance, hidden behind a cluster of ferns, she watched the wreckage smolder, strange sparks flickering in the twilight. The artifact was unlike anything she had ever seen: twisted metal plates, sharp edges, glowing panels, and mechanical limbs partially buried beneath shattered tree trunks. The sky, once serene and endless, was now marked with the dark scars of smoke and flame, the echo of an alien warship brought low. From the smoke emerged a figure tall, broad-shouldered, and unmistakably human. His skin was pale but tanned from exposure, muscles taut beneath a worn tunic, eyes scanning the surroundings with sharp, cautious intelligence. He moved deliberately, his steps firm on the soft soil, every movement betraying a mixture of weariness and determination. Lyra's heart pounded as she instinctively crouched lower, her wide eyes filled with terror. The stories of her ancestors surged forward, tales of distant predators who consumed the living, devouring entire worlds and civilizations in ravenous hunger. She feared this being, this human, might see her as nothing more than prey. Her mind raced with images of carnage and consumption. To Lyra, the idea of being eaten was more horrifying than death itself, an end so intimate and final it left no trace of existence behind. She imagined sharp teeth tearing flesh, the warmth of life extinguished by brutal jaws, the helplessness of being overpowered by a creature stronger and more ruthless. She knew nothing of human customs or culture, only the raw instinct that screamed danger. With each breath he took, she imagined him tasting her scent, seeking out the tender flesh of the herbivore alien girl to sate an insatiable hunger. Lyra's limbs trembled, frozen between the urge to flee and the paralyzing weight of fear. Yet curiosity intertwined with terror. Despite the overwhelming dread, Lyra's gaze remained fixed, watching as the human explored the wreckage, pulling at tangled wires and examining strange devices with a deftness born from experience. He muttered words in a language foreign to her ears, his voice deep but not immediately hostile. There was a flicker of kindness in his actions as he cautiously cleared debris and fashioned crude tools from broken parts. His behavior suggested he was not a mindless predator, yet the fear in Lyra's heart did not subside. How could she know his true intentions? How could she trust a creature so alien, whose presence alone had shattered the sacred peace of her world? As twilight descended and the forest darkened beneath the rising moons, Lyra's anxiety deepened. The shadows seemed to pulse with unknown threats, and the wind carried whispered warnings from unseen creatures. Yet, even as she wrestled with her fear, a fragile thread of hope took root. Perhaps this human was not the monster her stories foretold. Perhaps beneath his rough exterior beat a heart capable of compassion, or at least neutrality. But trust was a fragile seed in this wilderness, one easily crushed by misunderstanding or aggression. Her mind wandered to the elder stories of first contact, tales of disastrous meetings between species, where fear and ignorance bred conflict and destruction. She wondered if she might be the first to bridge the gap, or if her fear would condemn her to retreat and hide forever. The balance of Xiphora itself seemed to teeter on this moment, the arrival of the human a ripple that might swell into a wave reshaping their future. With the last light fading, Lyra made a silent vow to observe, to learn, and if possible, to protect her people from whatever fate this visitor might bring. But deep inside, the terror lingered, a terrible, aching fear that one day, the human might look at her not as a fragile being to be spared, but as a meal to be consumed. The forest held its breath, waiting for what dawn would bring. As the moons rose high over Xiphora's horizon, casting a silver glow over the dense foliage, Lyra remained hidden in the shadows, her breath shallow and eyes wide with unease. She dared not move closer, yet every instinct urged her to understand the mysterious human. His figure appeared almost spectral in the dim light, bending over the wreckage with a determination that seemed to defy exhaustion. Each click and whir of his tools echoed through the stillness like a heartbeat in the silent forest. The human's presence was an enigma wrapped in contradiction. He carried an aura of danger, his hands capable of wielding weapons and tools alike, his expression hardened by the cold realities of survival beyond the stars. Yet there were moments when his gaze softened, especially when he paused to sip from a water container or look at the sky as if searching for something beyond the distant stars. Lyra saw flashes of vulnerability and loneliness she had never before encountered in her sheltered existence. For a moment, a fragile empathy flickered within her heart, battling against the fear that gripped her. Still, every rustle of leaves or distant animal cry sent her back into a state of heightened alert. What if this stranger was more than just a lost traveler? What if the legends were true that humans were fierce carnivores, capable of hunting down other species to satisfy their primal appetites? She shuddered, imagining herself as prey, helpless and exposed under the cold eyes of the human. The terror was visceral, almost suffocating, and yet, despite the mounting dread, she could not tear her gaze away. As the hours slipped by, the human finally collapsed beside the wreckage, exhaustion overtaking him. His heavy breaths filled the night air, and Lyra watched as his eyes fluttered closed in a rare moment of vulnerability. The forest, which had seemed so ominous minutes before, now felt almost peaceful in his presence. For the first time, the terrifying predator seemed human in its frailty, it being driven not by hunger, but by a desperate will to survive. Lyra's heart slowed its frantic pace. She dared to hope that perhaps, beneath the layers of myth and fear, there was a chance for understanding. But the night was long, and trust was not given lightly in a world where survival was paramount. She slipped silently away, retreating deeper into the forest with a mind swirling with questions and a soul burdened by fear. Chapter 2: Fragile Trust and Uneasy Curiosity. The dawn's first light spilled softly through Xiphora's towering canopy, bathing the forest in a golden haze that shimmered with dew. Lyra awoke in her secluded glade, the memories of the night before vivid in her mind, the alien presence, the fear, and the unexpected moments of vulnerability she had witnessed. Her thoughts were tangled with conflicting emotions. Terror still lingered like a shadow at the edges of her consciousness, but curiosity had taken root in its place, stubborn and growing. Determined to unravel the mystery of the human, Lyra moved cautiously through the forest, her steps light as a breeze, following the faint traces he had left behind, footprints pressed into the soft earth, disturbed leaves, and the occasional glint of metal fragments caught in the underbrush. She longed to understand his purpose, his nature, and above all, his intentions toward her world. As she approached the crash site, Lyra's breath caught. The wreckage was less chaotic than before. The human had been at work, piecing together what she could not comprehend. There was a method to his madness, a rhythm in the way he manipulated the alien machinery that spoke of skill and determination. Yet, despite his efforts, the ship remained silent, a broken giant tethered to a foreign land. From her hidden vantage point, Lyra watched as the human moved with deliberate care, his hands working tirelessly to restore what had been lost. She noted the careful way he handled the strange components, as if respecting their purpose. The fear that once consumed her began to ebb, replaced by a flicker of hope that perhaps he was not the devouring beast her nightmares had painted him to be. Still, mistrust lingered. The human's gaze occasionally darted toward the forest's edge, sharp and wary, betraying a readiness for conflict. Lyra realized that this was not a being unfamiliar with danger. He had survived battles she could only imagine. Her heart beat faster, not from fear alone, but from a dawning awareness that their worlds, though so different, were both scarred by survival's harsh demands. As the day wore on, the human paused and looked directly toward where Lyra hid. Their eyes met for a brief, electric moment, his expression unreadable, a mixture of caution and something softer, almost pleading. In that instant, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Neither wished harm, yet both were prisoners of their instincts and circumstances. Lyra stepped forward slowly, every muscle taut with apprehension. Her voice was barely a whisper as she spoke, her words trembling in the quiet forest air. "I am Lyra. I mean you no harm." The human's eyes widened in surprise, and then a slow, weary smile broke across his face. "I'm called Mark," he replied, his voice gravelly but gentle. "I'm not here to hurt you." In that fragile exchange, the first seeds of trust were planted, tentative and uncertain, but real. The herbivore alien girl and the human found themselves bound by a fragile thread of hope, suspended between fear and the possibility of friendship in a world that had never prepared them for each other. Lyra's heart still pounded wildly in her chest as she took a cautious step closer, the unfamiliar sensation of speaking directly to another intelligent being both exhilarating and terrifying. The ancient trees around them whispered softly in the gentle breeze, as if holding their breath for what would come next. Mark, the human, remained still, his piercing eyes never leaving hers, reflecting a complex mix of fatigue, wariness, and a flicker of something she could not yet name, perhaps relief. The moment was delicate, balanced on the edge between trust and fear, and both understood the fragility of this new connection. Mark spoke slowly, his voice steady yet tired. "I crashed here, far from home. I don't belong on Zyphora. I'm not here to hunt or conquer, only to survive long enough to find a way back." His words, simple yet laden with desperation, eased some of Lyra's dread. She had feared that the human was a merciless predator, but in his voice, she heard something profoundly human: vulnerability, hope, and an aching loneliness that transcended species. Despite their differences, they shared the same fundamental need: survival. Yet, even as a fragile truce began to form, the gulf between their worlds remained vast and intimidating. Lyra was painfully aware that she knew nothing of human customs, language, or intentions beyond what her imagination conjured in fearful dreams. Likewise, Mark's eyes held a flicker of confusion, as if struggling to understand this delicate alien who appeared so unlike any creature he had ever encountered. Their communication was slow, fragmented, relying on gestures, expressions, and the occasional shared glance that bridged the gap between words. It was a tentative dance of understanding, a silent negotiation where each step forward was measured and cautious. Despite her terror, Lyra found herself drawn to the human's determination and resilience. She watched as he worked tirelessly on the wreckage, his hands deftly manipulating strange tools and devices that gleamed with unknown energy. Mark's focus was unwavering, his survival skills honed by a lifetime of hardship. And yet, in moments of respite, She caught glimpses of a softer side, a quiet reverence for the beauty of the forest, a gentle care when he crouched beside a wounded creature or touched a fragile leaf with unexpected tenderness. These contradictions puzzled her and chipped away at the walls of fear she had built around her heart. As hours passed and shadows lengthened, Lyra hesitated before offering a gift, an assortment of brightly colored fruits and tender leaves she had gathered from the forest's edge. In Sylvari culture, sharing food was a sacred act of friendship and trust, and she hoped this gesture might bridge the divide between their worlds. Mark accepted the offering with a grateful smile, his fingers brushing hers briefly in a moment of contact that sent a strange warmth coursing through her. For the first time, Lyra felt the stirrings of hope, not just for survival, but for something deeper, the possibility of connection, understanding, and perhaps even companionship. Yet beneath this budding trust lurked an undercurrent of unease. Both knew their worlds were vastly different, and that the harmony of Zyphora might be shattered by the presence of this lone human stranger. Rumors whispered by the elders spoke of human civilizations marked by conflict and conquest, their hunger for resources and power legendary. Lyra feared what might come if others of his kind arrived, whether friend or foe. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her slender shoulders, torn between her desire to help Mark and the duty to protect her people from unknown dangers. Mark, too, was haunted by uncertainties. His survival depended not only on repairing his ship, but also on navigating the treacherous politics of an alien world whose rules he barely understood. The kindness shown by Lyra was unexpected, a fragile light in the darkness of his predicament. Yet the scars of past battles, betrayals, and losses lingered beneath his calm exterior, reminding him that trust was a luxury few could afford. Still, in Lyra's presence, a flicker of hope ignited, a hope that perhaps, against all odds, two beings from wildly different worlds could find common ground and face the uncertain future together. As twilight descended once more, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold, the herbivore alien girl and the human sat side by side beneath the ancient trees, sharing silence and the unspoken promise of fragile friendship. The forest around them breathed softly, a witness to the beginning of a story neither could have imagined, a story of fear, courage, and the tenuous thread of trust that might one day bind them as allies, or perhaps something more. Days melted into each other as Lyra and Mark gradually settled into a fragile rhythm, their lives intertwined by circumstance, yet shaped by an ever-deepening understanding. Despite the lingering tension between caution and curiosity, the walls of fear that once separated them began to crack, revealing a shared determination to survive and protect what they held dear. Mark, the stranded human, with his tireless hands and indomitable spirit, worked relentlessly to restore fragments of his crashed ship, while Lyra, the delicate herbivore alien girl, ventured beyond her usual safe confines, driven by a mix of concern and fascination for the stranger who had so abruptly invaded her world. Their communication, once hesitant and stilted, grew more fluid with each passing day. Language barriers melted away in the presence of gestures, facial expressions, and the unspoken language of empathy. Lyra's soft voice, melodic and filled with wonder, brushed against Mark's ears like a gentle breeze, while his gravelly tones carried the weight of hardship yet shimmered with unexpected kindness. They shared stories, Mark, of a distant blue planet called Earth, of vast cities and relentless wars, of friends lost and hopes barely clinging to life. Lyra spoke of Zyphora's endless forests, the delicate balance of life that sustained her people, and the ancient songs sung beneath the twin moons. Each tale deepened the bridge between them, weaving strands of trust from threads of vulnerability. Yet trust was never complete. Shadows of doubt lingered at the edges of their fragile alliance. Lyra wrestled with her fear that Mark, or worse, others of his kind, might bring destruction to her peaceful home. The stories told by elders haunted her still, of predators who devoured worlds and consumed life without mercy. Mark, too, was haunted by memories of battlefields where allies turned to enemies and where survival was often a grim calculation. He understood that his presence alone was a ripple in Zyphora's calm waters, one that might summon waves beyond control. Despite these fears, Moments of genuine connection blossomed like rare flowers in the wild. Mark showed Lyra how to use some of his tools, and in turn, she taught him the secrets of Zyphora's plants, the healing herbs and fruits that could mend wounds and soothe pain. One evening, beneath a sky ablaze with stars, Mark shared with Lyra a simple meal fashioned from the forest bounty, seasoned with spices from his home. They laughed quietly at the awkwardness of trying each other's food, the warmth of companionship easing the weight of loneliness. In that shared meal, they found not just nourishment, but a tentative hope that perhaps survival need not come at the cost of fear. But fate was never kind to the unwary. As their bond grew, so too did the stirrings of danger. From the dense forest, distant echoes whispered of approaching threats, rumors of a scout ship sent by a nearby human faction, drawn by the same mysterious signals that had doomed Mark's craft. Lyra's heart tightened with dread. She realized that the fragile peace she and Mark had forged might soon be shattered by the arrival of others, bringing with them unknown intentions and a hunger for power that could consume Zyphora's gentle forest whole. Mark understood this too. His mind raced, torn between the desperate need to fix his ship and the dawning realization that his presence endangered not only himself, but this alien girl who had become his unexpected friend. The choices before them were stark: fight, flee, or find a way to stand together against the coming storm. As twilight descended once more, their eyes met in silent agreement, knowing that the fragile thread of trust was about to be tested in ways neither could foresee. Chapter 3: Shadows of Conflict. The morning sun cast long golden rays across Zyphora's forest, but beneath its beauty simmered a tension as palpable as the humid air. The peaceful sanctuary was on the brink of upheaval, the harmony of centuries threatened by the shadow of war. Mark and Lyra moved swiftly through the undergrowth, their steps light but purposeful, hearts pounding with the urgency of impending conflict. The scout ship's arrival was no longer a distant rumor, it had become an undeniable reality, its sleek metallic hull gleaming ominously on the horizon as it descended toward the verdant planet. Lyra's wide eyes reflected a blend of fear and fierce resolve. Her people had always been gentle, but the thought of foreign soldiers trampling through their sacred groves filled her with a protective fury she had never known. She tightened her grip on a staff carved from the ancient wood of the Zephyrin trees, its surface etched with symbols of protection and strength. Beside her, Mark's gaze was steely, the weight of countless battles evident in his stance. Though a stranger to this world, his military instincts awakened fully, ready to defend the fragile alliance they had forged. Their plan was simple, yet fraught with peril: to warn the Sylvari elders of the imminent threat, and to buy time for Mark to finish repairing his ship. Every step deeper into the forest revealed signs of disturbance: broken branches, scorched earth, and footprints that did not belong to any native creature. The forest, usually alive with gentle sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves, felt eerily silent, as if holding its breath in anticipation of the coming storm. As they approached the Elder's sanctuary, a sprawling network of towering trees interwoven with glowing vines, Lyra's heart sank. Guards stationed at the entrance eyed Mark suspiciously, their weapons low but ready. The Elders themselves were a mix of wisdom and worry, their faces etched with lines carved by time and grief. They listened intently as Lyra relayed the threat, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear beneath. Mark added what he could, describing the capabilities of human warships and the dangers that lay ahead. The Elders deliberated long into the day, their decision weighed heavily by the potential cost of conflict. Some called for immediate evacuation, others urged caution and diplomacy. But the consensus was clear: Zyphora's peace could not be sacrificed without a fight. Preparations began swiftly, with the Sylvari arming themselves with whatever weapons and defenses they could muster, blending their natural agility and knowledge of the forest with the technology Mark brought. The alliance between the human and the herbivore alien girl had evolved from fragile trust into a partnership forged in necessity. As night fell, the first scout ships pierced the horizon, their engines humming like ominous thunder. The forest's ancient guardians stirred, and the stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of Zyphora and perhaps the future of interstellar understanding between two wildly different species. The eerie silence of the Zephyrin forest was shattered by the low hum of engines growing louder as the scout ships sliced through the twilight sky. Mark stood beside Lyra, his senses sharpened by years of military training, every nerve alert to the impending danger. The once peaceful woods, draped in iridescent green and flecks of golden light filtering through the canopy, now felt like a battleground poised on the edge of chaos. The Sylvari warriors moved with quiet precision, their lithe forms weaving through the underbrush, blending seamlessly with the natural world that had been their fortress for centuries. They wielded weapons crafted from hardened wood and crystalline energies harvested from Zyphora's rare minerals, a blend of ancient tradition and newfound innovation. Lyra's heart raced as she took her place among the defenders, her green skin shimmering softly in the dimming light. The trust she had built with Mark had forged a bond stronger than she could have imagined, but the threat looming above cast a long shadow over their fragile alliance. Mark's hands trembled slightly as he readied his weapon, a compact plasma rifle he had salvaged and modified. It was an uneasy feeling, standing shoulder to shoulder with a species so different from his own, yet here they were united by the shared instinct to protect what they loved. The scout ships descended swiftly, disgorging squads of armored soldiers armed with pulse rifles and plasma grenades. Their armor gleamed harshly in the fading light, cold and unfamiliar against the organic backdrop of Zyphora's wilderness. The clash was sudden and brutal. Sylvari warriors sprang from concealed positions, their agility and knowledge of the terrain giving them an initial advantage as they struck swiftly and disappeared like shadows. The forest erupted into chaos, cries of battle echoed through the trees, mingling with the crackling of energy weapons and the thud of heavy boots on soft earth. Mark moved with practiced efficiency, firing precise bursts into advancing enemies while coordinating with Lyra and the Sylvari fighters. His voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the cacophony as he directed defensive formations and called out enemy positions. Lyra fought with fierce determination, her staff glowing with ancient power as she parried blasts and struck down foes. Though her species were not natural warriors, the urgency of survival ignited a primal courage within her that surprised even herself. Amid the tumult, Lyra caught sight of a figure advancing through the battlefield, a heavily armored human commander barking orders with ruthless efficiency. The sight sent a chill through her, a stark reminder that not all humans were like Mark. This commander embodied the very fears that had haunted her since the moment she first saw Mark's ship fall from the sky. Her terror surged anew, threatening to overwhelm the resolve she had fought so hard to build. Mark noticed her hesitation and locked eyes with her, his expression fierce yet reassuring. "Stay close," he urged. "We fight for this world together." The words steeled Lyra's heart, grounding her in the shared purpose that transcended fear. Side by side, they charged forward, a beacon of unity against the invading force. The battle waged deep into the night, the forest alive with flashes of light and the cries of combatants. The Sylvari's intimate knowledge of their home gave them an edge in guerrilla tactics, but the human soldiers' firepower and numbers pressed relentlessly. Casualties mounted on both sides, and the line between friend and foe blurred in the chaos. As exhaustion threatened to claim them, a sudden explosion rocked the battlefield, a flare of brilliant light signaling reinforcements arriving for the defenders. From the shadows emerged a hidden contingent of Sylvari elders wielding ancient powers long thought lost, their presence turning the tide. The invaders faltered, their disciplined advance disrupted by the unexpected fury of Zyphora's true guardians. In the aftermath, as the forest settled into an uneasy calm, Mark and Lyra stood among the wounded and the weary, their bond forged stronger by the fires of battle. They knew this was only the beginning, the true storm was yet to come. But together, they would face whatever darkness awaited, their fragile alliance a testament to hope born from fear and trust forged in the crucible of conflict. The crackling tension of the battlefield hung thick in the night air as Zyphora's ancient forest bore witness to a conflict it had never known. Mark's lungs burned with exertion, his hands slick with sweat as he reloaded his weapon amidst the chaos. Beside him, Lyra moved with a fluid grace born from years of communion with the natural world, her staff glowing softly with an ethereal light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Together, They had become more than mere allies. They were symbols of hope, fragile yet fierce, standing defiantly against the tide of invaders who sought to claim the forest as their own. Despite the overwhelming firepower of the human soldiers, the defenders of Zyphora fought with an unyielding spirit, their intimate knowledge of the terrain transforming the forest into a labyrinth of traps and ambushes. Twisting vines and sudden pits ensnared the enemy, while hidden archers and swift Sylvari warriors struck from the shadows. The invaders, though disciplined and relentless, found themselves increasingly beleaguered by a foe they had underestimated. Mark's voice rose above the din, issuing commands with the clarity of a seasoned leader. "Hold the line. Protect the elders." His words galvanized the defenders, infusing them with renewed determination. Lyra's eyes locked with his, their silent communication conveying a shared resolve to see this battle through, no matter the cost. Around them, the clash of steel and energy filled the forest, punctuated by cries of triumph and anguish. Then, from the depths of the woods, a resonant chant echoed, a summons to power from Zyphora's oldest guardians. The elders, once hidden among the trees, stepped forward, their presence commanding and majestic. Draped in robes woven from living vines and glowing blossoms, they wielded ancient magic that seemed to pulse with the very life of the planet. With gestures both graceful and formidable, they unleashed waves of energy that surged through the battlefield, toppling enemy ranks and turning despair into hope. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. The invaders faltered, their advance broken by the sudden fury of Zyphora's defenders. Mark seized the moment, rallying his forces and pressing forward with a coordinated counterattack. Side by side with Lyra, he carved a path through the chaos, their combined strength a beacon that rallied the Sylvari and human alike. As dawn approached, the remnants of the invading force retreated, their ships lifting off with a reluctant roar. The forest, scarred but unbroken, breathed a sigh of relief. Survivors tended to the wounded, their faces etched with exhaustion but alight with the fierce glow of victory. Mark and Lyra stood amidst the aftermath, their bond tempered by fire and trial, a promise unspoken yet deeply felt. Yet, in the quiet moments before rest, both knew that this battle was but the first chapter in a larger war. The arrival of the scout ships heralded forces far greater and more ruthless, and the fragile alliance between human and Sylvari would be tested as never before. The future was uncertain, but their resolve was unwavering. Together, they would face the darkness that threatened to consume them all. Chapter 4. A New Dawn, a New Path. The sun rose over Zyphora, casting warm light upon a world still healing from the scars of battle. The forest, vibrant and alive, seemed to pulse with renewed energy, as if the very planet celebrated the survival of its children. Yet beneath the surface of this serene morning, change rippled through the air, a transformation born of conflict, trust, and an unexpected alliance. Mark stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, his gaze steady as he surveyed the land that had become both sanctuary and battleground. The ship he had once sought to repair now rested quietly nearby, its systems humming softly under the watchful eyes of the Sylvari engineers who had come to trust and learn from him. Beside him, Lyra approached, her presence calming and steady, a living bridge between their two worlds. They spoke of the future of rebuilding, of preparing for the challenges yet to come, and of the possibility that peace might one day extend beyond the borders of Zyphora. Mark shared stories of his home, of human resilience and innovation, while Lyra revealed the deep wisdom of her people, their reverence for life and balance. Each tale wove into the other, creating a tapestry of hope and possibility. Together, they forged a new path, not one defined by fear and suspicion, but by cooperation and understanding. Plans were laid to strengthen defenses, to teach and learn, and to reach out to others across the stars who might share their vision of harmony. The herbivore alien girl and the human had transformed from strangers into partners, their bond a testament to the power of trust and the resilience of the spirit. As the morning light bathed the forest in gold, a gentle breeze carried the promise of a new dawn. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but with courage and unity, Mark and Lyra stood ready to face whatever the universe might bring. In their hands lay the fragile hope of two worlds, a hope that, against all odds, might just change the course of history. In the days that followed the decisive battle, Zyphora began to hum with a renewed sense of purpose. The scars of conflict were still visible, charred patches of forest, fallen trees, and quiet mourning for lives lost, but beneath the surface, life thrived anew. Mark and Lyra worked tirelessly alongside the Sylvari people, their combined efforts a symbol of the fragile yet powerful alliance that had blossomed between two vastly different species. Mark shared human technology and knowledge, teaching the Sylvari how to reinforce their natural defenses with energy barriers and communication arrays, while Lyra introduced Mark to the subtle intricacies of Zephyran ecology, how every plant, every creature, and even the soil itself played a vital role in maintaining balance. The process was not without its challenges. Cultural differences sparked moments of tension and misunderstanding. The Sylvari, with their deep-rooted reverence for nature, often struggled to reconcile the humans' pragmatic, sometimes ruthless approach to survival and technology. Mark, on the other hand, grappled with the delicate, spiritual worldview of Lyra's people, realizing that brute strength alone would never be enough to protect this world he had come to cherish. Yet, through patience and openness, they found common ground: respect for life, a desire for peace, and a commitment to protect what they loved. As the alliance strengthened, word of Zyphora's resistance spread across the stars. Other alien factions, some hostile and others curious, took notice of the unexpected partnership between human and Sylvari. Envoys arrived bearing gifts and warnings, their presence a constant reminder that the universe was vast and filled with dangers beyond their imagining. Mark and Lyra found themselves thrust into roles they had never anticipated as diplomats, leaders, and symbols of hope in a galaxy teetering on the brink of chaos. One evening, beneath the twin moons that had witnessed so many cycles of life and death, Lyra and Mark stood together overlooking a new settlement rising from the forest floor. Wooden structures intertwined with living trees, powered by a fusion of Sylvari magic and human technology, embodied the future they were building, one where harmony and progress walked hand in hand. Lyra's gaze softened as she looked at the community thriving around them, children of both species playing and learning side by side, their laughter a melody that chased away the shadows of the past. Mark reached out, his hand gently covering hers, grounding her in the moment. "We've come a long way," he murmured, "but there's still so much to do." His voice carried the weight of responsibility, but also an unspoken promise that he would stand by her and Zyphora no matter what storms lay ahead. Lyra nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of hope and resolve. "Together," she replied simply, "we face tomorrow no longer as strangers, but as allies, friends, family." The words echoed softly in the still night air, a vow that transcended species and history. As dawn approached, painting the sky with hues of rose and amber, a new chapter began, not just for Mark and Lyra, but for Zyphora and the countless worlds watching from afar. The journey ahead would test their courage, challenge their beliefs, and push the boundaries of what was possible. But united by trust, forged in the fires of fear and battle, they stood ready to shape a future where differences were not divisions, but strengths. In the heart of the forest, life pulsed with renewed vigor, carrying the promise of peace, resilience, and the enduring power of unity. A promise born from the terror of a herbivore alien girl who once feared she would be eaten, and a human who became her protector, her partner, and the key to a new dawn. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of rebuilding, learning, and forging new bonds. Zyphora's once isolated Sylvari community had transformed into a beacon of cooperation between species, a living testament to what trust and empathy could achieve in the face of cosmic uncertainty. Mark found himself deeply embedded in the daily rhythms of the forest world, no longer just a stranded human, but a vital thread woven into the vibrant fabric of Zephyran life. He marveled at how the Sylvari moved with an elegant harmony that seemed almost otherworldly, how their deep respect for all living things permeated every action and decision. In turn, he shared stories of Earth, of human resilience, innovation, and imperfection, fostering understanding across the chasm of experience. Lyra grew into her role as a bridge between worlds, her fears transformed by the strength she discovered within herself and the connection she forged with Mark. She learned to see the human not as a threat, but as a partner, someone who, despite vast differences, shared a similar pulse of hope and survival. Their relationship became a symbol to their people, a reminder that fear could be overcome, that differences could be celebrated, and that the future was not dictated by the past, but by the choices they made today. Yet, the galaxy beyond Zyphora remained unpredictable. New challenges surfaced: political tensions with neighboring planets, the arrival of mercenary groups seeking to exploit the planet's resources, and whispers of cosmic powers watching silently from the void. Each threat tested the fragile alliance, but it also strengthened it. Together, Mark and Lyra navigated these trials, their bond deepening through shared struggles and triumphs. They became leaders not by decree, but by the trust and loyalty they inspired. One evening, as the twin moons cast their soft glow over a ceremony honoring the defenders of Zyphora, Mark and Lyra stood before a crowd of Sylvari and human settlers. The elders spoke of unity and courage, praising the unlikely partnership that had saved their world. Lyra, standing tall and radiant, felt a surge of pride and humility as she looked at the faces around her, faces once divided by fear and now united by hope. Mark stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed the gathering. "This is not just a victory for Zyphora or for one species," he said. "It is a victory for understanding, for peace, and for the future we choose to build together. We are stronger not despite our differences, but because of them." The crowd erupted in applause, a joyous chorus that echoed through the ancient trees. In that moment, the terror that had once gripped the herbivore alien girl, fear of being consumed, of being prey, felt like a distant memory. She was no longer alone or helpless. She was a guardian, a leader, and a symbol of hope that bridged stars and species. As the celebration continued into the night, Mark and Lyra slipped away to a quiet grove, their hands entwined beneath the shimmering canopy. The journey that began in fear had blossomed into something neither could have imagined, a legacy of unity forged in the crucible of survival and nurtured by trust. Looking up at the endless sky, Lyra whispered, "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Mark smiled, his gaze steady and warm. Together. And beneath the watchful eyes of distant stars, a new chapter unfolded, not just for two worlds, but for all who dared to believe that fear could give way to friendship, and that even the most unlikely allies could change the fate of the universe.